In this video, what I want to do is go over some of the latest Fallout 76 news, of which we just got a ton. In yesterday's video, I covered several bugs, exploits, and glitches that have been popping up over the past week. I'm not sure what exactly happened, maybe just people spending more time with Wastelanders, getting to some of the final stages, but it definitely dominated some of the Fallout 76 news as of late, or at least until today, where we just saw some of the heads of the game do an AMA. And in this AMA, they reveal a lot. I'm going to go over some of the major revelations that did pop up out of it, and it gives us a look at some of the future things that are on the way and when exactly we could expect certain ones. But also it made it pretty clear on several fronts which things aren't on their way to the game, even though people are speculative or hopeful to get them. If you guys enjoy the content, you can leave 5 stars and a favorite. That does really support the channel. But otherwise, first and foremost, let's look at today's Inside the Vault article from Bethesda. One of the big new announcements on this is that the Fallout 76 private test server is making a return. Starting next Thursday on April 30th, the PTS will reopen for Fallout 76. It seems like if you're already in the PTS for Wastelanders testing, you will be carried over, so it's not like you have to sign up a second time. And specifically, they describe how the reason this test server is opening up once again is that they want early community feedback for our next update, which is currently planned for May. This will provide a couple of weeks of playtesting time so that those of you who are interested can share your thoughts and bug reports with us before the patch goes live. That's actually a pretty important statement. We know that a May patch is coming to the game. Several things are slated for it, of which several I'll mention in this video. No release date thus far for this has been given, but we know that it'll come out before the Fosnot Parade event, which launches on May 25th. And although some were hopeful for a May 5th update, Bethesda tends to like to do things on Tuesday. May 5th is the first Tuesday of May. Their couple of weeks statement here seems to totally rule that out. So we'll likely see the next Fallout 76 update on the 12th to the 19th. And for me at least, I find this whole situation interesting. We know at least some new content's coming with the return of Fosnot in this May update, perhaps a few other surprises and bug fixes, things like that. The reason I find this interesting is it seems like the ideal scenario would have been maybe 2 weeks after Wastelanders have a bunch of bug fixes, then 2 weeks after that have a bunch of content updates and hopefully some more bug fixes. But instead, bundling all of those together will make it so some of those bug fixes are at least a month away, seemingly, based off the time frame stated here. Wastelanders was relatively bug-free, but that's pretty long. It also is interesting that this update is getting put on the PTS. Bethesda in the past has described how they want to do this for some of the larger ones, and this at first glance didn't seem like a large update. Fosnot is exciting, but it's more of what we've had in the past, so it does make me wonder if there's any other things coming with this that we just don't know about yet. A few other surprises Bethesda has up their sleeve. On the community roadmap, we could see things like a backpack vanity update, a new treasure hunter quest, all before Fosnot. Likely that'll come with this update, so shipping on the 19th seems like a pretty likely date. And we don't know what those are. I mean, you could kind of infer somewhat from the titles, but we don't really have explicit details yet. And as far as the PTS after this one, it's going to work the same way as with Wastelanders. It'll be NDA'd, so you can't share information you see during this, even though it's just an update, not a brand new DLC. And even further, there will be an expansion of the PTS for this. More people will be invited before this next iteration of it goes live. They mentioned they'll actually have an additional round of signups in case you missed the initial one. Although right now in game, a mystery pick event at the Legendary Purveyor is live. What this means is for 60 Legendary script, you get 1 3-star Legendary item. So it is a way to get discounted versions of those, but you don't know if you're getting a weapon, a melee weapon, or a piece of armor. And actually a great point to transition from one topic to the next. A recent bug was just noticed with the Legendary Purveyor. I don't know if this has been since the launch of Wastelanders or just the past couple of days, but basically, and I just got this as I was filming that clip for this video, she stands too far back in her new little hole. So what this means is you literally can't reach her to click trade. Pretty easy solution, just go into third person. Bethesda has responded to this, describing how it will be fixed in the next patch, so likely this May patch. But then moving on to one of the big bugs to pop up with Fallout 76 that just recently kind of jumped into the mainstream. And I think larger part it's because it makes a pretty good headline, and it is while dying in Fallout 76, other NPCs can steal your weapon and ammo, and thus you lose your weapon and ammo. Over the past 24 to 48 hours, numerous articles have popped up talking about this. It's a very real issue. There are several reports of it, video footage. It seems like this could happen with many types of NPCs. I've heard people saying just humans, but then other people saying not just humans. Oftentimes, it looks like it's heavy weapons, which may just be a coincidence. They may be more popular overall, or it may actually be a factor. And also things like explosive heavy weapons or things producing goo piles. But one of the commonalities every time is death. You have to die in game for this to happen, so a very easy way to never be affected is just get good. Click on their head, dude. Separate from that, it seems like there's an issue that leads to losing power armor. Bethesda actually has issued a response to this, saying that in the next hotfix, they're planning to include a fix where NPCs can take the player's weapon on death. Although, for some of the other issues that have popped up, they're still in active investigation. So seemingly they've identified and confirmed one, the other ones are a little bit more up in the air. It seems like some of these issues, like the hacking issue and the stash exploit, aren't totally verified even by the community yet. No time is provided for the hotfix, although one of the other things that has been popping up around this, and something Bethesda has been guilty of for a while now, is not restoring characters or giving items back. A line that has been shown time and time again if you lose an item in this game, even due to a glitch, even if you catch it on video, is Bethesda support saying, sorry, we don't have the tools to restore that. And people are already getting it in regards to some of these more recent glitches. Although in the past, some people were able to, even after getting told that, actually get things restored. But for now, we'll see how this evolves over the next few weeks. But at least we know Bethesda is aware of all of this and actively investigating it. But then moving on to the AMA, which was a pretty big one. There's a lot of information that was shared during this, and I'm going to go over a decent chunk of it. One of the first things I want to do, just a huge shout out to Bethesda. They did a really good job at actually answering a lot of the highly requested questions. If you scroll down the thread, the top voted 19 questions all got answers. I'm sure some of these were bumped up after the answers were provided, but even just right off the bat, the highest voted questions were getting answers immediately. And that's kind of what you hope to see with these types of things. Granted, none of these were super hard-hitting questions. It's not like there were any things about Fallout First, or why'd you do this, or why'd you do that, but it still was pretty cool to see them actually going through and answering a lot of the things people wanted to hear. Which, speaking of, one of the things was a roadmap. When can we expect a roadmap for this game? We don't get an exact timeline as to when it's coming, but they do describe it as very soon, and how this new roadmap will include the content for the rest of the year. So very similar to the roadmap we saw for 2019. The interesting thing about the Fallout 76 roadmap is we had that podcast with Pete Hines a while ago where he kind of said it should be out in the next couple of weeks.
We're going to be talking a lot about it in the next week or two and laying out some roadmap stuff. But
granted, Pete Hines is more of a Bethesda Softworks employee, so he looks at all of the Bethesda games, not specifically just 76. But it was rather odd how he said that so confidently, and then it's been like a month and a half. But hopefully over the next couple of weeks, we'll get a surprise update with, hey, here's the roadmap for the rest of the year. That definitely would be a cool thing to do, and I imagine they want that out closer to Wastelanders rather than farther away. A lot of eyes are on the game right now, so you want to capitalize on that. As far as which direction this game is going, they reiterate on what Pete Hines said in a recent podcast, I covered this yesterday, how they are focusing on multiplayer and replayable content, but there will also be NPCs, storylines, and new companions in the future. It seems like in the intermediary for Fallout 76, it really is going to be more of a multiplayer and replayable content focus. New features broadly, not just a bunch of new quests, which I for one am okay with. I'm curious to see what exactly we get as the next big update, because I don't think it's going to be another story DLC, but probably something else. Although of course, as I mentioned earlier in this video, in just around a month, we know that Fosnot Parade is returning. This was a limited time event that came in early last year, and this year's version will have some changes. It seems like the old masks will be making a return, as they do cite mass drop rate changes. If you're not familiar, last year, some of the masks had just a ridiculously low level of drop. Like it was under 0.1%, and Bethesda said this was intentional, but it really looked like they put the decimal in the wrong spot. But even further, this year there's going to be other changes to the event overall, as well as some new masks making an appearance. Just recently we had this data mined. It might be an Atomic Shop item, but it's definitely Fosnot themed and looks pretty cool. But even further, it was described that a new mole miner will be coming soon in the next patch coming this May. So what exactly this means or is totally unclear. I have no idea where they could go with this. Like, do they just mean a new mole miner that you could randomly stumble upon in a random encounter, or what's more likely a new passive mole miner similar to the legendary purveyor? There is that mysterious mole miner at the bottom of the rusty pick where the legendary purveyor now resides. It looks like he's digging a tunnel or something's going on here, so perhaps they expand on that. But this enemy or NPC as a whole is something I think a lot of us would love to see more lore or backstory on, so perhaps that's what we'll find through this. Another relevant one is with the Marine Combat Helmet. The Marine armor, of course, is in Fallout 76, but for one reason or another, the helmet isn't. Or actually with Wastelanders, it started popping up on enemy NPCs, but you yourself actually can't get this in a legitimate way. Although it is confirmed here that soon we'll be able to find and craft the Marine Combat Helmet, I have a feeling this is likely related to Fosnot, perhaps as an award to that, as he does cite, similar to how the plasma grenade plans were dropped by Festive Scorched. The plasma grenade plans were the old hyper rare item that was just very hard to find. It had a very low drop rate. One of the more minor things mentioned for this May patch is now you'll have an ability to actually dress up your companions, which is pretty cool. And then lastly, for things that I do really suspect are coming in the short term, we get the official confirmation that pets are coming. They do say now that we have the companion system, we are looking to add pets as well. If you missed my past video, a lot has been data mined around this. You could find cats, dogs in game, even emotes on the atomic shop for different tricks. And this kind of reinforces that idea that pets won't be an active follower, but rather very similar to allies, something that sits at your base and will just kind of do stuff, look cute, you could show it to your friends, actually build a doghouse. And these are labeled as ATX, so they'll likely be a microtransaction of some sort. Whether or not that's just the skins or the actual functionality itself, though, isn't totally clear. That's what we know as far as new things coming in the near future, but outside of that, they shared a lot of details on things coming this summer. One such thing is a new event featuring the Wendigo Colossus. No explicit details are given on this, just that there will be a brand new event featuring the Wendigo Colossus itself. And if you watch some of my other videos, you'll know that this event was likely data mined already. There's an event in the files known as a Colossal Problem. We're effectively at Monaga Mine. Seemingly after nuking it, this event will begin and you will be able to fight the Wendigo Colossus. Something pretty interesting, it'll actually be a named Wendigo Colossus. The Wendigo are technically mutated humans, so the Colossus is seemingly just a further mutated human, or rather 3 mutated humans together. And this is going to be a very legitimate event, not just like the Scorchbeast Queen, where you kill the Scorchbeast Queen, that's the only objective, but rather there will be smaller objectives for you to do. The Wendigo Colossus will go and try and eat some meat piles, and you're going to have to use irradiated dynamite to blow things up and deal damage. And at least based off this brief description we could find in the files, it really sounds like a boss fight, which could be fun if there was a more objective focused boss fight, not just a flat out damage boss fight like the Scorchbeast Queen. Right now, the Wendigo Colossus is in a weird situation where the only way to get it to spawn is to nuke an area and then go to a random encounter zone where it has a 6% chance of dropping. Meaning it's kind of hard to find, and it's kind of anticlimactic for such a cool new enemy. A totally new feature that was revealed with this was actually a team system. It described how this summer there's going to be a new team system similar to a public looking for group system. Bethesda had this idea for looking for a group system early last year, but it never ended up getting implemented. With this team system, team leaders will appear on the map, and team leaders will be further incentivized with group buffs to play events, do dungeons, and explore together. And this honestly sounds pretty fun. A great way to get introduced to strangers, but also people wanting to do those specific activities. In the past, Bethesda has described wanting a second wave for the event system, and it would be cool to see these two updates go live in tandem. The new event improvements, such as not having to get a hit on a legendary, but still being able to claim the item from that legendary, and then a more focused way to play those events with others. Right now in game, there's kind of a problem where people have such a single player focus with the new content that sometimes it is genuinely difficult to complete certain events because just not enough people show up. But even further this summer, we also are getting the legendary perk system. We've heard about this in the past, but the latest iteration will basically make it so these legendary perks will be highly powerful and coveted, and players will unlock an additional legendary perk slot starting at level 50. And in the past, it was described how you'd get an additional one every 50 levels. So it's kind of hard. Getting to level 50 pretty easy, getting to level 100 kind of hard, 150, 200 now getting increasingly difficult. But even further, you'll also be able to scrap your extra perk cards to rank up these legendary perks. And when you start a new character, these slots will also be carried over. So you can use legendary perks on an existing character, with the idea being you could try out different builds. So this is coming this summer, but also, hopefully something that comes out at the same time, is respecking. Right now in Fallout 76, you could technically respec your character, but the way it works is every one level will allow you to move one special stat. So if you're high level, like level 130, being able to move all your special stats takes a while, a lot of leveling up. And of course, the higher your level, the more difficult it is to do this. They don't confirm respecing outright, but they describe how it's been talked about at length, and they hope to tackle it in the coming months. It would make a lot of sense for respecing and legendary perks to drop at the same time, see people able to entirely overhaul their builds pretty easy. Like maybe at a certain cost, whether that be a certain amount of levels or some other currency, you get all of your special stats and perk points refunded and you pick all new ones. Then we transition to several things that are a bit farther out. Things probably coming in the next year or so for the game that are more just touched on here. One of the big ones, and actually this was my question I asked all the way back at the Greenbrier event, is there the potential of actually expanding Fallout 76 outside of Appalachia? To which we do get the response, we were talking about ways to do just this. Stay tuned. Separately, but relevant as far as my talking point goes, we do get a question around the future DLC, and whether or not the Enclave or Brotherhood may make an appearance in those, which this response has actually gotten a lot of people excited and interested. Let's just say the Brotherhood is now watching the wasteland of West Virginia very closely. I find both of these answers to be particularly interesting because it represents opportunities Bethesda has that I think are easy successes going forward. And by that I mean, it's two things they could do that would immediately garner a lot of attention around this game. As far as new lands, go back to the capital wasteland, Fallout 3's landscape, and then actually add in the Brotherhood of Steel or the Enclave as maybe two opposing factions. Even an update that was somewhat mediocre, but doing that would probably get the attention of a lot of Fallout fans, and Bethesda must be aware of that. And then if they did it well, like to the quality of Wastelanders, that could be a huge hit for this game. People would be very interested in getting to experience some of that lore and story again around those locations, around those factions. While new lands seem basically confirmed, I mean, they're gonna have to go somewhere eventually, right? The Brotherhood of Steel comment is much more interesting. Some people have taken this to mean that it is also confirmed. I don't. I think they are actually looking at this as a potential opportunity in the future, but they don't really know. They're watching closely, so maybe they have some ideas as to how they can be implemented, but it won't necessarily be implemented. I, for one, actually kind of like the idea of maybe exploring some other new or different factions. Maybe some factions that propped up in the immediate aftermath of the Great War that didn't actually make it on the long term. Although I would be pretty hyped if they actually were adding back the Brotherhood of Steel. That would be a pretty cool moment. Another maybe we get is around the Cultist of the Mothman. They're right now in Fallout 76, and although they have lore in the form of holotapes or notes, they don't really have a larger story or quest. A lot of people would really love to see this be explored in a more definitive way. Bethesda doesn't really give a yes here, but more so of a maybe. It's something they might explore in the future, how Fallout 76 is a real fertile ground for writing. I think the Cultist could be pretty cool to have as a side quest or smaller DLC, like actually give players a lasting choice to either join them and fully commit or not. Similar to Mutations, if you join them, you'll get certain pros, but also very definitive cons. Additional allies are confirmed to be coming in a future update. Something pretty interesting. Somebody asked about instance dungeon raids or arenas. Wastelanders showed that instancing technology is working now on a larger scale, but here Bethesda describes a totally new feature, how they're prototyping a system where we will be incentivizing certain dungeons to be played on a rotating basis for unique rewards. So funny enough, that is basically what the vault raids were. All of it was the same location, but the location changed on a rotating basis and you got unique rewards by completing the vault raid. But one where it actually took on different dungeons throughout Fallout 76, some of the lesser ones like the burrows could be kind of cool. And I'm happy to hear that that vault raids concept and idea isn't getting scrapped completely. With the vault raids, the execution didn't really land, but the idea I think is sound. It could be a cool feature. There's a question about text chat and we get basically a non-answer. It's mentioned how it was looked at getting implemented early on, and currently this year we have a number of other quality of life improvements we're tackling, and it's not a direct no. In other instances we did get direct no's, but it's not a direct yes either, so I guess a maybe, but if anything, a far out maybe. Those were several of the things that you could kind of stay hopeful about, but we got several things that basically aren't coming. My question was actually if some of the gold bullion items in Fallout 76 would be tradable in the future. If you're not familiar right now, towards the end game you get gold bullion items, that being the new weapons and armors. None of these are tradable, which is interesting because a lot of the economy is focused on trading. And if Bethesda going forward is going to use systems like this, it can be harmful for the economy. People want to use those new weapons, but you're taking out a major component of weapons. We get a hard no on this though, and it's described how the endgame loot of Wastelanders isn't meant to be a tradable commodity, with the idea being that if you earn something really cool, you can now show it off knowing you didn't just buy it. Which is cool, but again, I would have liked if, let's say 6 months down the line, or maybe even 9 months down the line, with the next major DLC, which is how I phrased my question, they did become tradable, so it did become a more staple part of the economy once these weapons aren't new and novel anymore. A similar question is around raising the cap of gold bullions. Right now you could earn 1,700 gold bullions per week, which means it'll take over 40 weeks to unlock everything. Over 20 weeks to unlock just the new items, not including the plans. This is another thing that they have no current plans on raising. phrasing. They basically describe how it's not meant to be a game you're supposed to complete or beat in a week, which I totally understand, although I could see some people having a problem where the grind is so long that they don't even want to engage in it in the first place. You unlock a few weapons, spend some of those initial gold bullions you get from the end of the quest, and then you're just like, I don't really want to grind out another few weeks to get the new power armor. And frankly, that's kind of the situation I'm in. I'll probably unlock a few things and I'll gradually grind over time, but I'm not going to go hardcore to unlock everything ASAP because that's just not fun. They shut down the idea of survival mode coming back. It doesn't look like that's coming back at all, which is a bummer, but they cite Nuclear Winter as being a good alternative. I still suspect another new PvP-based multiplayer mode's on the way, but we don't hear about it here. Some people ask about increasing the camp budget and also having multiple NPCs at your camp. So being able to build more structures at your camp or hold more human NPCs at your camp, but both are shut down, citing server instability. But Bethesda has pretty continuously described, and they kind of reiterated here, that camp budget improvements will come in optimizations with other things. They're not just going to one day double it, but rather what they might do is make certain things cost less as they get optimized or they just decide to change it. But I have a feeling this will just continue to be a problem. There are more and more things coming out or just earnable in the game to build, but camp budget hasn't grown really at all since launch. There's been a few moments here and there, sometimes again those optimizations, but nothing major. Similarly, there's questions around being able to actually set up settlements with a friend, so basically a duo settlement. That too is more of a maybe or shut down, and then finally, as far as group progress goes in Wastelanders, that is something else that isn't on the way. Right now in Wastelanders, if you're playing with somebody else, you're really just progressing their quest, not able to progress your own. Bethesda describes how it's really meant to be one person making all the choices, and if you're trying to make two choices at once, it doesn't really work as well. So yeah, there was a lot to go over in this video, but this was a beefy one. Bethesda really revealed a lot about the game and where it's headed. Hopefully this roadmap comes out soon. I think once we get that, it'll be very telling as to what's next. I wouldn't be shocked if they try and follow a format similar to last year. Over the summer, more intermediate and just less updates, but maybe a new multiplayer mode, more features. We hear about several of those in this video. And then come this fall, we'll have another big new DLC similar to Wastelanders, some story content for us to enjoy. But until then, I thank you all for watching. There's still a lot more to do and unpack with Wastelanders, a lot more that's probably coming over the next couple of weeks as far as announcements. But until then, I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.